Museums basically start with a collection of objects, and then it can diversify into various aspects. A large museum necessarily has a large group of collections, different types, different kinds, from different aspects, and how this collection is built. That's quite an interesting aspect. It depends on various kinds of collections and also the types of collection that are obtained by various means. As for example, these archaeological sites museums are entirely dependent on the antiquities found at that particular site. But for a big multipurpose museum, in metropolitan cities and other places, there are many different kinds of collections obtained from different sources. One of the principal sources is private collection. And private collection is a widely used term because it depends on the idiosyncrasies of private individuals. Some people are interested in coins, some are Renaissance paintings, some impressionist drawings, like that. And there are some collectors who specialize in many different types of things. Ultimately, each collector has got a specific worry in his or her mind about the future of that collection, how that collection is going to find a proper home where they can be stored properly, securely, enjoyed by the people at large, and serve a specific purpose of historical perspective. I know a very large number of collectors while working in the field, in different fields in my life. As for example, I started my career at the Indian Museum, and this has got a checkered history as long back as in 1963. The Indian Museum is of course a very large museum. It has got many different sections, scientific as well as archaeological, artistic, anthropological, etc. And the antiquities have been, and the objects kept in the museum, stored in the museum, displayed there, are obtained from various sources. It has a long history. But there are also museums which do not start with such a checkered history. So they start, sometimes we have museums that start from a single collection, as for example the Raja Kelkar Museum in Pune. Dinkar Kelkar was the guiding spirit of that museum. He started collecting a lot of things that were neglected, that people never thought would be of any use, things like lamps, like things of everyday life, utensils for example. So he thought that in the fast growing world, these things are going to be out of date within a very short time. And he had that prudence and foresight of collecting them before they disappear. And now you can see what was our life maybe 5-6 decades back, and one would really be surprised to find out the type of changes that had crept in. So thanks to Kelkar Sahab that he had that foresight. But there are other collectors. They don't discriminate. They think that there are objects which will in any case give some kind of historical perspective, aesthetic pleasure, and iconographical importance. So from that basis they select their objects and according to the means they collect them. In their lifetime, they enjoy collecting them, show it to selected groups of people. But after that, when they become, when they feel a bit concerned about the future, they think of donating it to a museum, bequesting them. And any big museum, especially in the Western countries, where they don't always depend on a given collection obtained from a source like the National Trust or the archaeological surveys or other scientific surveys. So they obtained most of their objects from this type of eclectic collectors. The best example is, of course, the British Museum. And the British Museum is rich by hundreds of bequests made by, British collectors. Or for that matter, the museum at the previously Prince of Wales Museum, now the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya. So in Mumbai. Now this museum is, being benefited even now. Very recently, for example, they got a huge collection of Tanjore paintings. So like that, from time to time, they are enriched with collections obtained by discriminating collectors throughout their life. And in that way, the museum is able to build new wings, new display galleries, new objects, and enlarge its scope of collection. Then I know of other collectors who never thought of donating everything to a particular museum. They used to give a certain percentage of their collection to different collections. Now most of the university museums, as for example, they are enriched by the collections of their alumni. The Ashutosh Museum is one example in Kolkata, connected with the University of Calcutta. The Bharat Kala Bhavan, for example, is another example. So in that way, they are built up with collections obtained from different people. Now about collectors, I have seen, for example, a huge collection made assiduously over a long period of time by Edmund de Ungar, a Hungarian collector who was based in Richmond near London. And he collected he collected various different kinds of things, and during his lifetime he obtained them. Then he donated some of them and thought of building up a museum entirely of his collection, which was unfortunately not done. So his successors sold some of them, and with that money they donated a part of them to other museums. Then there are collectors like Khandalawala in Mumbai, and Khandalawala was a very successful lawyer. He was quite rich, but he was a very discriminating scholar also. So he collected very selected type of objects and ultimately donated everything to the Prince of Wales Museum. We know of other collectors like the Birlas, for example. They have built the Birla Academy of Art and Culture in Kolkata. The Goenka collection is still not, they have not been entirely given to a particular institutions, but there are. And also collections that I have seen abroad, which were built up, say for example the Benkheims. Their collection has now found a home in the Cleveland Museum of Art. So in that way, the museum administration, the director or the board, they should take care, they should keep all these big collectors in good humor and maintain a very good relationship, pamper them, with new offers, and ultimately so that their collection ultimately comes to the museum. Talking about collectors and collections, where their position in the museum, I'm thinking of three very discriminating collectors who are able to collect a large group of objects, which are indispensable for the study of that particular type. Say, for example, the collection of textiles built by Giraben Sarabhai, almost single-handedly, and how Giraben finally built up the Calico Museum of Textiles at Ahmedabad, which is undoubtedly one of the largest museums of its kind in the world, not only in India but in the world. And it's indispensable for the story of the history of Indian textiles. From the very beginning, Giraben was conscious about that particular aspect, and she collected from very different sources, and the kind of collection that she built up is envy of any collectors in the world. Today, and since textile is a very fragile object, extremely difficult to conserve them properly, to display them, so she took from the very beginning a plan to get them published, to get them documented, photographed. Display and exhibiting to the public was not the most important part of her object. The other collector I can think of in the same line is Krishna Ribu, Krishna Thakur. I knew her from the days when she was Krishna Thakur. And then I first met her in New Delhi when she was objecting on a group of early Chinese textiles that were obtained from Dunhuang and other places at Central Asia, part of which were in the National Museum in New Delhi. After that, when she moved out, she used to come to India, moved to Paris. She went for her education in the US and married Jean Ribu, and ultimately settled in Paris and enlarged the scope of her collection, not only of Indian textiles but Chinese, Japanese, Southeast Asian, and textiles from other countries in Africa and Europe. Ultimately, she built up a large organization which was basically for the purpose of research and further inquiry into the field of textile history. That's a unique project. And her emphasis was not at that point of time so much on their display, but their study, to put them in the perspective of the history of textiles as a whole. But finally, a part of her Indian textile collection have found place in Musée Guimet in Paris. She, of course, collected not only textiles but also other objects like post-impressionist painting. There is a very big collection. Then photographs, and her son was her eminent photographer, who unfortunately, tragically died at a very early age. And I had also the good fortune of going all the way to Paris and examine a part of her collection. And that includes virtually every different aspect of Indian textiles, from the earliest that have been found, from Al-Fustat to the 19th and early 20th century textile specimens. The other collector that I have come across in our country is Jagdish Mittal. Now Jagdish ji, happily, though he is now 96, he is with us, amongst us, and he combines a very sort of unique combination, the aspects of being an artist himself, being a collector, as well as a museum person. And he is also a great scholar. And he started, his theory was, he was not, hankering for a Chola bronze or a Gupta sculpture or a very costly and rare thing. He thought that the things that are not demanded by others and available at a relatively low cost would be of interest to him, because these things will ultimately go out of vogue. And in that process he was able to build up a huge, enormous collection of metalware, wood carving, ivory, textiles, painted scrolls, bronzes, which once Douglas Barrett called jungly bronze. Bronzes from Himachal Pradesh and other things, Bastar bronzes from sculptures from Karnataka. These are folk bronzes, and they tell a different kind of story which are often neglected by us. And Jagdish ji, especially during the last 20 years, he has vigorously he is following a program of publication, publishing his entire collection in beautifully presented book with in collaboration with eminent scholars in the field. Though, as I know him personally, that 90% of the information are being supplied by him. For him, each object, he is aware of their story, of their importance, of their uniqueness, and their place in the history of Indian art. So, these three different kind of collectors have not only helped to build up the sections of different museums. Jagdish ji has himself started a museum of his own. But their collection is indispensable in building up the story of, say for example, Indian folk bronzes or Indian textiles or classical textiles and costumes and other things. ठीक है सर?